one of the things I always look at, and this is kind of very slightly geeky, as to the trends in technology, is what's going on in the open source software community. Okay, how many of you guys know what open source software is? Okay, all right, half. So open source software is basically the development of software that people basically publish on the internet, and whole groups of people assemble and just work on it, mostly as a hobby, sometimes as a job, sometimes their company pays them to work on it. But it's basically software that's freely available. Because it's freely available, it's freely discussed, right? There's a lot of information, and people want to work on, they get to choose what they want to work on. So they work on what's hot, okay? And so if you look at the trends in open source software, you can get a lot of insights into what the new technologies are that might be available to apply to problems, okay? If you look at the open source software technology transition over the last 10 years, okay, 10 years ago, open source software was all about developing an application that ran on one computer, okay? So you might, an open source word processor, an open source spam filter, an open source, email handler, an open source web filter, open source, CRM system, an open source, tool for this, a graphics package. But it was all software that you would kind of download on one computer and kind of run on that computer to solve the problem that you were trying to solve. If you look at the open source community today, okay, every project that is hot, that is getting a lot of attention and moving forward in a significant way, is all about software that you kind of got to have like 15 or 20 computers to even start to use, okay? It's basically software that's designed to solve these larger problems, like, I want to run Facebook or do a Facebook-like product. It's going to have millions of users. How do I do a database? How do I do a queuing engine? How do I do this? How do I do that? All the open source software projects are about basically using large numbers of computers in concentration, okay, to basically provide a service. And so if you look at that, there is a ton of technology in there. And the question is how do you apply that technology to problems that, that an industry is facing?